Master discussion. Comparative analysis of electric consumption at home through a 실내 스쿨 perspective. 현웅시 Department of Electrical Computer Engineering, The Graduate School 성균관 University. Abstract. Title of abstract. Machine learning is a modern field that has emerged as a new tool for data analytics in a distributed computing environment. There are several aspects at which machine learning has improved the processing capacity along with the effectiveness of analysis. In this paper, the electrical usage of the home is analyzed through a k-means clustering algorithm for obtaining the optimal home usage electricity data point. The Davis-Bode index and the Shiller score fields finds the detailed optimal number of clusters in the k-means clustering algorithms and present the application scenario of the machine learning clustering analytics. Machine learning is a state-of-the-art sub-project of the artificial intelligence that is being evolved for finding large-scale intelligent analytics in the distributed computing environment. In this paper, we perform comparative analytics onto dataset collected for the electrical usage of home based on the k-means clustering algorithm using comparison to Illustrator score with the ratio A/1 dataset. The performance evaluation shows that comparison index is similar in number of Illustrator score even if datasets are smaller than before. Machine learning, k-means clustering, big data analytics has simplified the complexity of the large-scale dataset processing in parallel distributed environment. Chapter 1 Introduction. Machine learning is an analyzing mechanism that fetches and identifies the matching patterns from existing datasets for new result formations. This paper discusses the comparative analytics related to unsupervised learning algorithms, at which we compare the k-means clustering result with the ratio of half dataset to Shiller score result. We performed the analysis and came to the conclusion that Davis-Bode index is not working smoothly in the Scikit-learn library, so performed the check analysis for Kalinske-Average index and Shiller score along with the Davis-Bode index and compared result to each of them. So to run that when we reduce the dataset to a mentioned proportion, the resultant dataset shows half score than traditional dataset score. Chapter 2 Overview and Motivation. In real life, household power consumption, diverse analytics, and electrical transformer. Transmission power can manage the period, can estimate it, and each data using electrical consumption, it can be used for progressive taxation, regional to regional demand, forecasting maintenance of power plant and facilities. In the gas company or car company, can estimate about the consumption for the via k-means algorithms and also can estimate via k-means algorithms can estimate about the gas consumption rate to via k-means clustering and index. Chapter 3 Paper or Content Introduction. Machine learning is a subject of artificial intelligence that is used to develop algorithms and techniques for enabling the computer to learn. It is used to train the computer for various aspects such as distinguish whether emails received are spam or not, data classification applications, association rules identification, and character recognitions. Machine learning includes a series of processes in which a computer looks up for similar patterns, generate novel classification system, data analytics, and producing meaningful results. It is a kind of artificial intelligence that can be predicted based on the result. If it is supported only by analytics algorithms, machine learning is a step-by-step evolution process that leads from big data analytics to predict future actions toward making decisions on its own through a press run the result. The key issues for processing a successful prediction model remains to be within increasing the probability and reducing the error, and said problems are resolved through enabling numerous iterative learnings. At the heart of machine learning are representation and generalization. Whether expression is evaluation of data and generalization is the processing of future data. Unsupervised learning is a type of machine learning that is used primarily to determine how data is organized. Unlike supervised learning or reinforcement learning, this method does not give a target value for input values. Autonomous learning is closely related to the density estimation of statistics. These autonomous learning can summarize and describe the main characteristics of the data. An example of autonomous learning is clustering. In this paper, we use K-means clustering algorithm to measure the optimal number of clusters based on the Kreisky average index, Schiller score, Day-Spurgeon index, and apply it to household electrical consumption analysis. Previous work, machine learning. Machine learning is like data mining, but it is different predicting data based on the learning attribute, mainly through training data in addition to three techniques: unsupervised learning, supervised learning, or reinforcement learning. Various types of machine learning techniques, such as semi-supervised learning and deep learning algorithms, are developed and has been used. Clustering. Clustering is a method of data mining by defining a cluster of data, considering the characteristics of given data and finding a representative point that can represent the data group. A cluster is a group of data with similar characteristics. If the characteristics of the data are different, they must belong to different clusters. It is the main task of exploratory data mining and common techniques for statistical data analysis, used in many fields including pattern recognition, information retrieval, machine learning, and computer graphics, maximizing inter-cluster variance, minimizing the inter-cluster variance. Note, however, the clustering should be distinguished from classification. Clustering is unsupervised learning without correct answers. In other words, we group similar objects without group information of each object. Classification, on the other hand, in supervised learning, when you carry out classification task, you will learn to predict the dependent variable with independent variable X of the data. Community feasibility assessment. Since clustering tasks are not correct, they cannot be evaluated as indicators, such as simple accuracy, as in typical machine learning algorithms. As you can see in the example below, it is not easy to find the optimal number of clusters without the correct answers. Cluster analysis itself is not one specific algorithm, but the general task to be solved. It can be achieved by various algorithms that differ significantly in their understanding of what constitutes a cluster and how to efficiently find them. Popular notion of clusters includes a group of small distance between cluster members, dense areas of data space. Scikit-learn, in general, a learning problem considers a set of n samples of data and then tries to predict the proportion of unknown data. If each sample is more than a single number of instances, a multi-dimensional entry, it is said to have several attributes or features. Supervised learning is in which the data comes with additional attributes. That we want to predict these problems can be either classification, sample belong to two or more classes, and we want to learn from already labeled data on how to predict the class unlabeled data. An example of classification problem was handwritten digit recognitions, in which the aim is to assign each input vector to one of the finite number of discrete categories. Another way to think classification is as a discrete as opposed continuous form of supervised learning, where one has a limited number of categories and for each of n samples provided. One if try to label them with the correct categories of classes. Scikit-learn is a machine learning platform in the middle range of a superficial broad Python module. This package high-level language can easily high-level documentation and proper API are suggested. Using BSD license as academic or commercially used. Source code documentation is downloaded from the website. Supervised learning and unsupervised learning is many problems is inserted in Scikit-learn. Generalized models, linear quadratic requirement analysis, kernel rigid regressions, support-based machines, stochastic gradient descent model solution also inserted in the Scikit-learn. Proposed approach. K-means algorithms is one of the clustering methods for divided. Divided is giving the data among the many partitions. For example, receive data object and divided data input data divided k data, each group consisting of cluster. Below equation is the K-means algorithms when cluster consisting of algorithm using cost function used. In other words, one of the data object divided by the k group currently divided similarly, dissimilarly with reducing the cost function about it. And from the theory, each object similarity increase. Different group similarity will decrease. K-means algorithms is each centroid and each group data object times summations. From this function result the data object group updated clustering progress. How to be clustering in a way is currency calibrate index, Davis-Bode index, the index Shiller score in this paper evaluated via currency calibrate index and the Shiller score evaluated. From the cluster currency calibrate index, the cluster distributed average and cluster distributed ratio will give it to you. For this BK is distributed matrix from the each group WK is a cluster distributed defined. N is the number of data CQ data group in CQ is a cluster Q centroid. C is the E of the centroid and Q is the number of data number in cluster Q. Shiller score is an easy way to in data. Each data cluster in data's data definition and each data is not clustered inner and data definition. BOI Shiller score SI is equal to calculate them. From this calculate SI equal to the function. SI is close to 1 is a data, I is a correct to each thing. Close to -1 cannot distribute the cluster to distributed. From the paper machine using the machine learning library scikit-learn in the household power consumption clustering. Household power consumption from the data download from the University of California Irvine Machine Learning Data Repository, and then use it. This dataset is via delimiter is divided. Global active power, global reactive power voltage, global intensity is divided. Global active power and global reactive power, XY axis experimenting. Python library is Anaconda 3 K-means algorithms. Key point using data K clusters. Reduce clusters distance. K-means algorithms input data put the labels. Figure 1 is before check currency calibrate index and Shiller score is execute K-means algorithms result. Figure 1 to figure 11 A1 dataset K-means clustering result for household power consumption. From UC Irvine repository reduce the dataset A1 times from original UCI machine learning data repository. After reduce each cluster distance and calculate each cluster currency calibrate index, increasing cluster currency calibrate index will decrease with K ratio is to low estimate K. This cluster partition will one more or not electric consumption rate very important. This one is the most important fact. Equal with the currency calibrate index estimation, Shiller score, the cluster will increase, Shiller score will decrease with K distributed or low factor with optimal K represented. From K-means algorithms calculate proper clusters, thing is very important. From the data estimate Shiller score, the result is K equals 7. Each cluster centroid and data prices, Shiller score 0.799 is the optimal score. From the former currency calibrate index, the result are 506.399 is the optimal result. Using this K-means algorithms, the fact is figure 11. From this K-means algorithms cluster 7 each group centroid and each centroid distance will be optimal value. From the result, each centroid can divide it. Household power consumption rate via clustering. Davis-Bode index. If the ground truth labels are not known, the Davis-Bode index scikit-learn method Davis-Bode. Then the Davis-Bode index is defined as 0 is the lowest score possible. Score value closer to 0 indicate a better partition. But the problem is the algorithm does not attach it in the scikit-learn library, only explain it in the document page, but cannot experiment easily. Related work. Machine learning is a sub-project of artificial intelligence that is used in develop algorithms and techniques for enabling the computer to run. It is used to train the computer for various aspects such as distinguish whether emails received are spam or not, data classification application, association rule identification, and character recognition. Machine learning includes a series of processes in which computer look up for similar patterns, generate a novel of classification system, data analytics, and producing meaningful result. It is a kind of artificial intelligence. That can predict based on the result if it is supported only by analytics algorithms. Machine learning is a step-by-step evolution process then leads from big data analytics to predict future actions toward making decisions on its own through past running result. The key issues for processing a successful prediction model remains to be within increasing the probability and reducing the error, and the said problems are resolving through enabling numerous iterative learnings. At the heart of machine learning are representation and generalization. Whether expression is an evaluation of data and generalization is a processing of future data. Unsupervised learning is a type of machine learning that is used primarily to determine how data is organized. Unlike supervised learning or reinforcement learning, this method does not give a target value for input values. Autonomous learning is closely related to the density estimation of statistics. This autonomous learning can summarize and describe the main characteristics of the data. An example of autonomous learning is clustering. In this paper, we use Cambridge algorithms to measure the optimal number of clusters based on hierarchical average index, silhouette score, word index, and then apply it to household electricity consumption analysis. Summary. From the paper, household power consumption via Cambridge clustering use a library which scikit-learn Anaconda 3 open source personally can easily follow it, and because using BSD license to real works don't have difficulty to do that. Not only the Cambridge algorithms, PC algorithms, but also SVM algorithms, etc. Other machine learning algorithms clustering can also do it. For this result in real life, household power consumption diverse analytics and the electricity transformer. Transmission power can manage the periods can estimate it, and each data using electricity consumption it can be used for progressive taxation, regional demand forecasting maintenance of power plant and facilities can do it. In the gas, the company can estimate via Cambridge algorithms and also can estimate the gas consumption rate via Cambridge clustering and index. Paper content introduction. Machine learning is an analyzing mechanism and then fetches and identifies the matching patterns from existing datasets for your result formations. This paper discusses comparative analytics related to unsupervised learning algorithms, in which we compare the Cambridge clustering result with a ratio of half dataset to silhouette score result. We performed the analysis and came to the conclusion that Davis Borden index is not working smoothly in the second running. So perform a check analysis, classical Harvard index, and silhouette score around the Davis Borden index and compose result to each of them. So to run that, when we reduce the dataset to our mentioned proportions, the resultant dataset shows a half score than the traditional dataset score. Related work. Machine learning is a field of artificial intelligence that is used to develop algorithms and techniques that enable computer to run. It is used to train the computer to distinguish whether emails received are spam or not. And there are various applications such as data classification, associated rule identification, and character recognition, which comply to the standard machine learning perspectives. It includes a series of processes in which a computer finds its own patterns, creates new classification system, analyzes the data, and produces meaningful results. The successful prediction occurs with the increase in probability and decrease in the error issues. Machine learning enables to sort out the issues with various iterative learning. Among them, supervised learning is highly related to summarizing the learning method for reinforcement mechanisms. Clustering is a process of mining the dataset by defining cluster of data that consider the characteristics of input and find the representative method to point out data groups. In this way, cluster is a group of relevant data elements with similar characteristics if the functions are not same, and the ingredients belong to contrast clusters. Clusters unsupervised learning without accuracy in answers. In the same way, the objects having the same information are grouped together for similar elements. However, the classification is a way related to supervised learning. When you perform classification operations, the system will learn to predict the dependent variable with the independent variable X of the data. Scikit-learn is a machine learning platform in the middle range of superficial broad Python module. This package high-level language can also easily high-level documentation and proper API suggested. Using BSD license as academic or commercially used. Source code documentation is downloaded from the website. Supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is the many problems is inserted in the scikit-learn. Generalized models, linear quadratic decrement analysis, corner rigid regressions, support vector machines, stochastic gradient descent models, solutions also inserted in the scikit-learn. Paper methodology. K-means algorithm is one of the clustering methods for divided. Divided is giving the data among the many partitions. For example, receive data object N, divided data input data divided K. Data each group consisting of cluster below equations is a K-means algorithm when cluster consists of algorithm using the cost function used. In other words, one of the data objects divided by the K group. Currently, the divided similarly is dissimilarly with reducing the cost function about it. And from the theory, each object similarly increase. Different group similarity will increase. The K-means algorithms each centroid and each group's data object times summations. From this function result, the data objects group updated clustering progress. Zero score is an easy way to in data. Each data cluster data's definition on each data is the clustered inner and data definition BI zero score is equal to calculate then. From the calculation SI is equation of the to that function. SI is a close to I is of data I is a corrected cluster to each thing. Close to -1 cannot distribute cluster is distributed. From this paper, machine using the machine learning library, scikit-learn is a household power consumption clustering. Household power consumption from the dataset downloaded from the University of California Irvine Machine Learning Data Repository and then use it. This dataset is via delimiter is divided. Global active power, global reactive power, voltage, global intensity is divided. Global active power and global reactive power is the XY axis experimented. Python library Anaconda 3 K-means algorithms. Key point is using data K clusters, reduce cluster distance. K-means algorithms input data. The label figure 1 is before checking current scalable index and the zero score execute K-means clustering algorithms. Figure 1 to Figure 11 A41 dataset K-means clustering result for household power consumptions from UC Irvine repository and reducing the dataset A41 times from original UCM machine learning dataset repository.
From K-means algorithms, calculate a proper cluster C is very important. From data experiment serial score, the result K equals 7. Each cluster centroid and data prices serial score 0.799 is optimal score. Even if the dataset is small, but the A1 dataset K equals 7, each cluster centroid and data prices serial score 0.810 is the optimal score. From the K-means algorithm cluster, 7's all dataset A1 dataset, each group's centroid, and each centroid distance will be optimal value. From this result, the dataset is decreased, but the K-means clustering class vector space it is optimal cluster. It is the same situation with before. Original dataset household power consumption rate via clustering. Summary. From this paper, household consumption via K-means clustering. Use a library which scikit-learn Anaconda 3 open source personally can easily follow it, and because using BSD license to real-world do not difficult to do that. From this result, even if it reduces the data A1, but the serial score and all the clustering result is the same as before, but the population will increase, it can show clearer result for the classification and vector space. Larger dataset to the small dataset is clear to show to the specific result for the serial score, but the opposite side is not clearly allowed. Because of the 4-dimension vector dataset from the experiment reduced the estimated time if received a huge dataset from the analysis. Conclusions. His discussion approaches to a diverse aspect of K-means clustering applications. First time tried to reduce the K-means algorithm's time consumption, but next time I tried to change my aspect to how to reduce the time from the large dataset. The approach is changed. These days, via machine learning algorithms can estimate about when changing the part lifespan from this result. All the experiments use the library scikit-learn Anaconda 3 open source. It can easily implement any environment. Because using BSD license can analyze diverse indexes from the first experiment. From second experiment, if dataset is huge, it needs time to analyze how many centroids is proper K-means cluster. At the time, can reduce time compared with A1 dataset but limited classification and vector space. From the experiment, reduce the estimated time if received huge dataset from analysis.